first grade. I am super excited for this week because we are stepping out of what we normally do for reading and we're going to do something special. This week, we are going to be taking a look at a seed that's going to turn into something. And I'm not going to tell you what it is yet because I want you to read with me. And so today we're going to be looking at the story, The Extraordinary Seed. I would like you to grab your booklet out, like mine, and I want you to follow along as I'm going through this. When we're done, then we'll be able to talk about some of the vocabulary words that we heard in the story. And I'll show you exactly what I want you to do with that when we're done reading. So, make sure your book is out, and let's get started. The Extraordinary Seed, written and illustrated by Jolene Matthew. Your book should be out, so you should be seeing mine. You should be able to see what I'm doing with my fingers. I'm pointing along, but I want you to be using your own book. On a breezy fall morning, a winged seed flew on the wind. Here's that winged seed. Any of you see those? It flew across the pine forest. It landed in a small clearing on the forest floor. See it? The small seed sat there a few days until a chipmunk came along and plunked it inside its mouth. Chipmunks and squirrels are known for that. It was dark, crowded, and wet inside the chipmunk's mouth. Look, he had other nuts in there too, other seeds. Finally, the seed was placed in the food chamber of the chipmunk's burrow under the soil. So as you maybe already know, during the fall, some animals will stay awake. They're not going to hibernate. And so chipmunks and squirrels specifically I think about, but rabbits are the same way. They're going to make themselves a home underground or storage areas underground to be able to have food for the winter. So that's what this burrow under the soil is for. It's going to hold some of his food. But the next day, a different chipmunk came into the burrow to grab the stash of food. It put the small seed and many other seeds in its mouth. As the chipmunk exited the burrow, the other chipmunk tried to get its seeds back. The small seed fell onto the forest floor. The small seed was accidentally pushed under the dirt by one of the chipmunks. The moist soil was just what the seed needed because the seed was not meant to stay a seed. Inside the seed was something extraordinarily special. The small seed began to change. Out came a tiny root. The small seed was now a sprout. See this? This is a sprout. When the seed is going to kind of split open a little bit, and you see that little bit of greenery, that little bit of a root. A stem grew out of the small seed. A stem grew out of the small seed, and tiny needles pushed their way out of the seed. The stem pushed up and up. It reached into the air, and the sun shined on it. The sprout was now a seedling. It's a seedling because look, it has a stem. Branches began to grow. More needles grew, and the stem began to change into wood. Oh. The seedling was now a sapling. Okay, so it was a sapling when it didn't look like a regular flower stem anymore. It got wood, it turned into wood, and it has more needles on it. The sapling grew taller. New branches began to grow on top of branches. That was not the only thing changing. The roots grew bigger. Notice the roots here on this page and the roots on this page. They're much bigger and thicker, aren't they? The roots grew bigger, stronger, and multiplied. The sapling was no longer a little sapling. It was now a tree. Only it was not just any tree. It was a Christmas tree. Now the Christmas tree did not stop growing and changing. See, it grew many pine cones. Look at the pine cones on there. Notice how some of them even fell on the ground. From a pine cone on the Christmas tree came a small winged seed. On a breezy autumn morning, a winged seed flew into the wind. And that is the end of our story. We're going to talk more about our story in just a second with our vocabulary. We've read our story, The Extraordinary Seed, and we have seen what happens when the animals take the seeds and the seeds break apart and it gets into the ground and it starts to grow. We're going to show those vocabulary words that we were talking about in the story. And the way that we're going to actually show them today is through drawing them. So for today, what you'll need is you will need a pencil, and then you will want to have crayons or colored pencils as well. Go ahead first and put your name on your paper. Having your book next to you is going to be very helpful for your vocabulary. And so I would actually like you to open up, and you'll open up to page 19 and 20. 19 and 20 is where we see our first vocabulary words. You could use a yellow crayon, actually, to highlight the word sprout. Sprout is our first word. So you can see that we find the word sprout right here on our vocabulary sheet. So what was a sprout? Well, it was a seed that starts changing. Okay, so it's a seed that all of a sudden splits open just a little bit, and the sprout comes out. A tiny root comes out. And so that's what you're going to draw for sprout. It's this picture right here. Okay? Then our next word we're going to look at is a seedling. Here's your picture of a seedling. You can highlight seedling with your crayon. The seedling is when the stem comes out of the seed and needles start pushing their way up. So it's just a teeny tiny little thing. But it now has a stem and it's going to have little needles at the top that are growing. That's a seedling. Here is your word, seedling. So you'll draw the seedling right here. Then we also have the words cone and sapling. So we need to find the word sapling. Oh, here it is. The seedling turns to a sapling. Okay? So what happens when it's a sapling? Well, the stem now is wood, changes into wood. Branches begin to grow, and there's more needles on those branches as well. Okay? And then your last word is a cone. And so cone, you're going to find on page 24, right after Christmas tree. Okay? Pine cones. You could even highlight pine and cones, pine cones. And so you'll draw a picture of the pine cones. You could show it from that page, or you could show it from this page here. And I know it's not going to be perfect, but I want you to do your best with those 4 words, drawing them out. And because those are the 4 main parts of a Christmas tree growing. Okay, so we read the story, we have our vocabulary words, we've reviewed them together, and I want you to make sure that you draw all 4 of them out. You should have them highlighted in your book. And then make sure that this book gets put back because we will need it again. So make sure that you put this, I would maybe just put it in my Tuesday folder so that you're ready for it in case we need it for tomorrow. When this sheet is done, this extraordinary seed sheet is done, this can get put into your Monday folder. Have a wonderful day.